Hey, everybody, welcome to Puddle Road, where we help you to see God and find purpose in everyday life. Now, I bet that you have some dreams that you want to fulfill in your life. The person you want to become, things that you want to accomplish, and if those dreams are from God, then I hope you do. In fact, I want to help you get there. But today, I want to talk about something that we don't always think about on our way to that land of blessing that we so desperately want to be at. Because once you are there and you are now accomplishing the thing that you have dreamed of, there are going to be temptations that you never saw coming. And how you deal with those temptations are going to determine how you end. See, it's one thing to start well, but it's a whole different thing to end well. And if you don't end well, then how you started may not even matter at all. Do you remember about 3 years ago, the whole big scandal with Ravi Zacharias? Do you remember him? He was an internationally known Christian apologist, speaker, author, brilliant guy. He was the Christian thinker of my generation. The guy was amazing. But after he died in 2020, all this craziness came out of this sexual perversion and misuse of funds that was going on in his life behind the scenes. I want to show you something just real briefly. I found this video. It's on a station. It's on a channel called Salvation and Stuff. Don't know anything about the channel, but he did a really good job with this overview. I just want to play a few seconds of this to refresh your memory about Ravi, who he was, and what happened that just kind of destroyed his legacy after he was gone. So let's take a look. Right. Let's see. Right about here. So he's talking about right after Ravi's death. Here we go.
Support for the family and admiration for the famed apologist came from all corners of the earth. Not only had Ravi reached millions of ordinary people, but politicians, athletes, and other famous celebrities. One of the world's leading Christian apologists had died, and having lived nearly 3/4 of his life preaching and teaching the fundamentals of the Christian faith eloquently and passionately across the globe, his legacy would be like those greats who had passed before him, like Chuck Smith, R.C. Sproul, and even Billy Graham.
The dude's
But unlike these Christian leaders, the legacy of Ravi was not set upon his death. And what would have and what should have been a solid legacy, becoming of a prestigious Christian leader, was just beginning to erode. And up until publishing this, is still suffering ruin.
See, the thing about Ravi was you just didn't see it coming. I mean, this guy was so solid in his teaching, in the way he defended the faith and defended the resurrection, defended the gospel, defended God and creation. I mean, this guy would get in and just go toe to toe with the most brilliant atheists in the world. He spoke in Muslim countries. He talked to Muslim leaders. This guy had so much reach, and he just seemed so solid. He was so humble in his approach. He wasn't arrogant. He wasn't flashy like some of the mega star preachers that fall, and you see it and you're like, kind of saw that coming. Nobody expected this from Ravi. I mean, he was really just kind of a nerd if you want to be honest about it. And so when I heard that, oh my goodness, I was devastated for days. Devastated, but not shaken. I mean, my heart broke for Ravi and my heart broke for what this would mean for his legacy, but it didn't shake my faith in Jesus. The tragic thing, though, is that for so many people, it did. Listen to this lady. This is one of the ladies that he was actually involved with. But here's what she has to say.
I knew the world to be an unsafe place before I met Ravi Zacharias, but I yet had hope that there were some safe and sacred spaces. I no longer live with that hope. I trusted him. I trusted Christendom. That trust is irreparably and catastrophically shattered.
Did you hear what she said there? My faith in Ravi and Christendom is irreparably damaged. When Ravi fell, when it came out that he fell, the way that his life ended, the collateral damage was just unbelievable. My faith wasn't shaken. There were most Christians' faith who had followed Ravi wasn't shaken, but for some people it was, especially the people that he personally damaged along the way. And so the question is like, man, how did he get here? Because I imagine that when he was 17 years old and the Lord saved him and he began this journey toward ministry and toward accomplishing God's purpose for his life, I don't think he saw this coming. I don't think that this was in the game plan. The way that I imagine it is that he started off really well. He started off with good intentions. He was working hard. Clearly, he was studying hard. He was learning the scriptures. He was a man who had to have been spending time in prayer. And I imagine that in those prayers, he was saying things like, Lord, if you bring this to pass in my life, if you allow me to serve you in this capacity in my life, I'll never fail you. I won't bring uh, harm to your name. I will serve you well, Lord. Give me the strength to never fall and never fail. Like I can imagine that in the beginning, he had nothing but good intentions. But somewhere along the way, Ravi went from the place of wilderness where he's struggling and things are hard and success is far off to the place of abundance and blessing, where now the guy has a worldwide reach. His name is known in countries all around the world. He's got clout, he's got respect, he's got finances, he's got the ability to persuade people. People want to be around him, they want to touch him, they want to talk to him. And at some point on his way to success, the place of abundance, he made that success Lord over his life. He took that success and he put it on the throne of his life where Jesus used to be and should have remained. And that is where the downfall began. Let me compare him to somebody out of the Bible in the New Testament, John the Baptist. Kind of a similar story. Okay, so John the Baptist, if you remember the story, he's set apart for the Lord. So he's raised in the wilderness for 30 years. He's in the wilderness being prepared for his time of ministry. And you got to think, man, like in the wilderness, yes, he's dreaming about his future and all the things that God's going to use him to do, right? He's dreaming about that. He's seeing it, but he's also feeling the loss. He doesn't get to be normal. He doesn't get to experience what everybody else does. You know that this guy at times just got lonely and just wanted to know what it was like to hang out with the guys, to go out, to have fun, to eat something that tasted good for a change. You know that this guy wanted to have sex. He was a man, a human being. You know he wondered what it would be like to have a family, to come home after a long day and be greeted by his wife and get to hold his son or daughter and look at them and see the reflection of his own self, his own eyes looking back. He had none of that. So as he was being faithful and working hard, he still felt the loss of those things that other people take for granted. But then, 30 years old, he begins his ministry, and the guy becomes a viral mega preacher overnight. all these crowds coming to him. He's got influence. He's got clout. He's got attention. He's got respect. He's sticking it to the Pharisees. People are coming and lining up to be baptized by him. Even Jesus comes to be baptized by him. And so all of a sudden, he's gone from wilderness to incredible blessing. And you don't think that he was tempted to cling to that blessing, to use that blessing to fill in all the gaps that he missed for those past 30 years? To take that blessing and put it as Lord of his life over Jesus? You don't think that temptation ever came his way? Absolutely, it came his way. But John, unlike Ravi, John warded it off. He cut it off before it got a hold of him. And here's how he did it. This is so important. So check this out in John chapter 3. All right. So John has this huge ministry, this huge following. He baptizes Jesus. Jesus starts his ministry. And now all these people that were following John are leaving John to follow Jesus. And now there's this temptation. There has to be, to try to hold on to it, to put it in place of Jesus over his life. John's disciples come to him. They don't like it. They don't want to see John losing everything that he just gained finally after 30 years in the desert. And they say, John, all these disciples, your disciples, are going and following Jesus. And here is John's response. Get a hold of this. It's going to help you one day, okay? So all of them are leaving. They're going to Jesus. In verse 29 of John 3, here's what John the Baptist says. He says, the bride belongs to the bridegroom. The friend who attends the bridegroom waits and listens for him and is full of joy when he hears the bridegroom's voice. That joy is mine and is now complete. So he's explaining to his disciples, look, I was here for a purpose. Those people who are following Jesus are the bride, and Jesus is the groom. And my purpose was to take the bride and to connect them with the groom. And now they're together, and I am going to be fading off out of the limelight. And then verse 30, so powerful. He, Jesus, must become greater, and I must become less. When John was tempted to cling to the blessing instead of the blesser, before that thing could get down in his heart, before that temptation could wrap its tentacles around his heart and get a hold of him, he surrendered himself again to Christ. He must become greater. I must become less. That was the position and attitude of his heart, and that is what kept him from using all of his newfound blessing to satisfy his own desires instead of fulfilling his purpose and remaining true to his purpose. You see the difference between the two men? Ravi used that blessing to feed his own desires. He used the influence and the clout and the money to fulfill his own fleshly desires. John the Baptist was willing to let all that go because he knew it wasn't about him. This blessing is on loan from God, and I'll enjoy it and use it as long as it's mine, but in the end, Jesus has to become greater and I have to become less. So what am I saying to you? What does this have to do with you? Because right now, whatever you're praying for, whatever you believe God is calling you to, that land of blessing that you sort of see in your spirit, but hasn't come into reality yet. Okay, one day, if it's from God, it's going to come into reality. But with it are going to come temptations. If you're broke and you are just praying that God is going to provide for you, and you're doing all the right things, and you're giving, and you're faithful, and you're working hard, and you're being responsible, and you're trusting the Lord, right? One of these days, you're not going to be broke anymore. You're going to have money. And when that happens, you're going to be tempted, now that you have money, to spend money, a lot of money, more money than you should be spending. You see that? Because when you have, then you want more. And there is going to be that temptation to spend more than you're able to put things on credit, to go into debt. Once you get a taste of that, you don't want to let it go. And one day you might find yourself actually giving less to God than you did when you were broke. That's why statistically, uh, Christians who are rich give a smaller percentage of their income to the Lord than Christians who are poor. That means if you are at like the entry level of your company, you're just starting out your career and you're praying for the day when you've advanced, right? And you're in the upper level and you're able to use that influence to bless other people and to advance the kingdom and all that, and your intentions are really good. Once you get there, there will be that temptation to use your influence and your clout and your success to satisfy some really dark desires in your flesh. And when those temptations come, even before they come, the way to keep from falling and ruining your legacy is to have the position, have the attitude. Jesus always, always, always must become greater. And I always, always, always must become less. He must become greater. I must become less. You wake up with that attitude. In the middle of the day, you renew that attitude. Before you go to bed, you renew that commitment day after day after day until it becomes the character and fabric of who you are. Jesus, you must become greater. I must become less. And that will help you, will keep you, once you land in that place of blessing that you are dreaming about, that place where you're fulfilling your purpose and you are doing well, that will keep you from destroying the whole thing and leaving behind a legacy of pain and regret and destruction. I want to see you do well. I want to see you live well. I want to see you accomplish God's purpose in your life. And so thank you for hanging out with me on Puddle Road. I hope that we can get there together.